Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you, and it is Cantoras by Carolina De Robertis. This is the last book review I'm doing of the 3 books that Jazz over at Red Panda Reads sent me for our book swap. If you haven't seen our book swap challenge, the link is above me now, so you can see the 3 books she sent me and the 3 books I sent her. But this book, oh my god. Before we get into that review, don't forget, if you like what you see, to subscribe to this channel. If you want to see since I upload, click that notification bell down below, and please give this video a thumbs up. Your support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. So this one was a really hard read for me, but one that you definitely should read. Before I go into the review, I'll read you guys the blurb. In defiance of the brutal military government that took power in Uruguay in the 1970s, and under which homosexuality is a dangerous transgression, 5 women miraculously find one another, and together an isolated cape that they claim as their own. Over the next 35 years, they travel back and forth from the secret sanctuary, sometimes together, sometimes in pairs, with lovers in tow or alone. Throughout it all, they will be tested repeatedly by their families, lovers, society, and one another, as they fight to live authentic lives. A groundbreaking, genre-defining work, Cantoras is a dazzling portrait of queer love, community, forgotten history, and the strength of the human spirit. It has a few reviews on the back here. It has every line of this gorgeous and grippingly adventurous tale sings with lush, anguous beauty, and that's the Oprah magazine. There's also a stunning lullaby to revolution. Again and again I was lifted, then gently set down again, either through tears, rage, or laughter, and that's by Jacqueline Woodson. It's also the winner of a Stonewall Book Award, a Kirkus Prize, and the Lambda Literary Prize finalist. The San Francisco Chronicle says, sweeping and utterly breathtaking, De Robertis' writing is reason alone to read this book. Like her fierce characters, her words pry and pull at the essence of not only what it feels like to be thwarted, condemned, or quarantined because of your beliefs and identity, but also what it means to be a vulnerable yet empowered, infinitely beautiful and fully alive woman. It also has another review on the front which is bold and unapologetic, a tribute to the power of love, friendship and political resistance. And that's from the New York Times Book Review. This book was an amazing read. It is written superbly. The characters are all amazing and powerful in their own rights. They're all very distinct. The brutality of it is fierce. It was so hard to read because it's true, and that's just heartbreaking. So this book, it takes place from 1977 to 2013, and the change in those pages, oh my god. First of all, I'd like to talk about the descriptions of the women in this book. So it's really interesting to finally read a book written by a woman, but from a female perspective of being utterly in love with the female body and finding it sexually attractive. Because most of the time when you read books and it's about a woman being attractive, it's quite often from the male's perspective and from a male author's point of view of a woman's body. So it's really interesting to read the beauty described from a woman's point of view of another woman, because it's something I haven't read. I've read gay romances between 2 men before, but I honestly haven't read any woman-to-woman romances, so it's a first for me, and it was really beautiful. The descriptions of everyone's hair being so luscious that you can just dive into it, the curves, just all of it is so beautiful and well written. I have an example which is on page 6. Adventurous like Anita, who lay just a meter or so away, her luxurious hair pulled into a long loose braid for sleep, hair that, if unwound from its braid, fanned out like a lush brown world that could be plunged into, inhaled, a scent to get drunk on. Just beautiful. It's so beautiful. Now, with these books, I would normally do spoiler free and then spoiler section. I don't feel like I can discuss this book without talking about certain spoilers. So if you haven't read this book, You can go to This Time Here Now to see my overall view. This book jumps straight in. There's not a long period of getting to know a world or anything like that. You get the nitty-gritty details, which are the important thing. It's very character driven. The women tell each other the stories of what's happened to them so far at the same time as them living this life between 1977 and 2013. So go to This Time Here if you haven't read the book. If you have, or if you just don't mind the spoilers, then stay tuned. So page 26 to 27, The Only Three. The Only Three is from Romina's story. She was taken and imprisoned after her brother was taken and imprisoned and has never returned. And she's raped, but she calls them only three because she's raped by only three men. One night and three another night, and then that's it. And she says only three because in her head that is lucky, because there are women who were raped repeatedly multiple times every night by more men than that. But the fact that she says only three and diminishes what happened to her is horrible. It's really interesting how it's written of what that does to her as a person, and she describes it on page 30. Would she have it in her to love back? What if it never left her, this clench against the three, the only three, their stink in her nostrils, their memory scarred into her skin? She could not think too far ahead. She still didn't know how much they'd done, what was dead inside her or was living, if they'd done it, if they'd started a life. But no, Ocean, no. Are you listening? You can't. I can't, so please. She's terrified of not getting her period, of being pregnant from these men, as well as what happened to her, and feeling, will she ever be able to be touched by someone she loves again? Because all it brings back memories of is these three. On page 84, Romina almost tells her mom that she's lesbian, which is a huge moment, and it also highlights just how much she loves her parents. Each woman has a totally different background. So Flacca, who is one of the main characters, she runs a butcher's shop. They had 4 children. She took over the butcher shop, which is a male role, but the family seems really open and lovely. They don't know she's lesbian, but her family is so warming and kind, so Flacca has that. Romina's family have lost their son. They don't know if he's dead or alive, but that he was taken by the government, but they have Romina, and she constantly feels like she has to hit a certain expectation to please them because the son is gone and therefore she has to achieve something. And they want her to get married, but as a lesbian she knows she can't. You then have Paz, who is a young girl. She has a very bad upbringing with a mother who had her very young and hasn't necessarily shown her the love that she deserves and needs. So she's learning early, trying to be free and fight the system. You have Melina, who is so quiet and has a hidden past which you find out about later in the book, and it is soul destroying and horrible. And I don't want to give away everything, even though I'm saying that there's no spoiler section. I'm not going to tell you the end of all these women's stories, but wow. And then finally you have Lavinus, or Anita, but you only really know her as Lavinus. And she is married. Flacca has caught her attention, so she's sleeping with Flacca behind her husband's back, and she's scared to leave her husband because she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have any way to support herself, she's never been alone, she's always hit the expectations. So her story is really interesting because she's learning late on as well. And something they all share in common is that they will all never be able to have children, especially in those days where it wasn't common to adopt or have fertility clinics and things like that. So they all share this belief that if they don't go with a man, then they can't have children and they can't get married and they can't have a family, which now we know you definitely can. On page 80 to 81, Lavinus's husband, seriously, what a douchebag. His wife has openly said that she doesn't want to sleep with him anymore, that it's not him, she's just not sexually attracted anymore, she needs her space. So he rapes her repeatedly. Just no means no, okay? No. On page 128, Paz's story really heats up when a older woman sees her sitting on the floor and says, "Sit like a lady." This really touched a nerve with me. I don't know if everyone has had this, but I definitely know for me, I'm 30 now, so when I was young, I definitely remember being told that. Not to the extreme of Paz, where it gets her thrown in prison, which is insane. insane, but being told is, you know, sort of scoffed at, like, sit like a lady, close your legs, because, you know, even though you're wearing jeans, apparently you have to keep your legs closed. That made me so angry. I found with this book, it's so well written, the characters are so believable, it's so raw, it's brutal, it's vibrant, it has such beautiful moments, and also it just raises every single emotion in your body, which is really good writing. I reacted to everything in it. It meant it took me a while to read because I actually work very long shifts. So normally I read for like an hour after work when I come home after food to chill out, but I couldn't read this one after work because it was so important to take all this information in. It took me a while to read it because I honestly had to gear myself up. It wasn't like on my days off where I normally wake up and sit and read for an hour with a cup of tea. I couldn't read this first thing in the morning, and if I did, I always found it sort of stayed with me for the rest of the day. Not an easy read. It's easy in a way of it's written very well and you want to know everything, but it is not easy to take in. On page 185, I really linked with Paz in this. She takes a man's job, so a job which is stereotypically for men, and you're surrounded by men and people expect you to act a certain way, and her description of this was just so accurate. There was a man to interface with. She stripped the femininity from her appearance as much as possible so they would take her seriously. Hair slicked back into a ponytail like a male rock star or soccer player. Trousers, baggy sweater, grim face, not unfriendly, for that too had its hazards, but just the right amount of set jaw for men to resign themselves to her rate and rules and silently thank their lucky stars that their own daughter had not turned out like that. She couldn't enter the men's world, not that she wanted to be a man. What she wanted was their power, but she could, she realised, skirt its edges as a kind of non-girl, as a failed girl, an in-between, and this role had a better chance at grudging respect than pretty girls ever would, and she had never been a pretty girl anyway, not even close, so she took it. She ran with it. She channeled her ferocity into math, the brisk unrolling of bills. This much for you, and no, that's enough, or do you want me to call another driver next time? There's also on page 184, she says about a woman who often smelled like a slaughtered seal, even though she spent hours scrubbing in the bathtub after her hauls, determined to leave the stench behind. But it wasn't so easy, she now knew. The smell of your work had a way of settling into your skin. Like Flacker's father, who always had a whiff of raw meat about him, as if the butcher shop had seeped into his body. That's how it was for working men, factory men, labourers, men of the land, like her, women of the land, of the sea, smelling like men's work. I loved this description of Paz being in the world of men because it's very accurate. On page 256, the argument between Flacker and Romina on the phone about Melina is so real. So all the way through the arguments between Flacker and Levinus, and the arguments between Levinus and her new lover, and all of those arguments didn't really mean much to me. I honestly felt like, meh, you cheated, she cheated, you're all cheaters anyway. But the argument between Flacker and Romina on the phone about Melina was very heart-wrenching because you can see both sides and you can feel for all three of those women involved, and what then happens to Melina, which I'm not going to tell you because it's the one I cannot give away. It hurts bad, guys. Well, that's it for the small bits that I wanted to mention about this book. I cannot give this book a mark. So for the first time, I'm not going to mark it. I'm not going to say 10 out of 10, I'm just going to say that everyone should read this book and learn from it and take things from it. I feel like it's almost a book that should be studied in school. It's that type of book and it is written so well. It should definitely be studied. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Sorry it was a bit of a heavy one. It was a heavy book. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram or Tumblr. I post general bookish pictures as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!